The book of Ecclesiastes was written by an older Solomon. Solomon would be king, a man who lived under the kingship of his own father David, a man who saw his father seek after the Lord with everything in him, who understood the importance of walking with the Lord, and at some point, at some time, that faded away in his own life, and he became more concerned with the things of this world rather than his relationship with God. In Proverbs, we see a young Solomon, a man who is full of wisdom and still has a long life ahead of him. He writes many proverbs. Matter of fact, Solomon writes many different other things that we don't have, that was not divinely inspired. But we know here in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, he speaks of many books that he has written. He was a man who had experienced everything this world had to offer. He was a man who had much wealth, much wisdom, much authority. He was king, and he even had the privilege of building the temple, something his father wanted to do, but God wouldn't allow David to do it, but he allowed Solomon to do it. And some theologians and scholars would even say today, the temple that was built under the leadership of Solomon is still something we cannot imagine today. That's how grand and glorious this temple was. Queens and kings would come to listen to Solomon's wisdom, just to hear him speak. They travel far, far, far across the land. Kings and queens in other countries would give Solomon whatever he needed in order to do the things that he wanted to do, because people were amazed in awe of Solomon and his wisdom and just his character and who he was. He was very loved by many people. Like I said, he had everything that this world had to offer. He was living the life that most people would dream to live. But in his older years, when he's an older man and he's lived the life that he's lived, he's walked away from his relationship with God. We know that he gave in to women. He had a problem with lust and with women, pagan women at that. And because of his sin that he didn't take to the Lord, he allowed this sin to take him away from the Lord. And this sin caused him to even worship other gods for a season in his life. But here in Ecclesiastes, he writes, and he tells us in the very last chapter of this book, he starts out in verse 1 and he says, "Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come and the years draw near, when you say, I have no pleasure in them." He lets us know right from the very beginning of this chapter that there will come a day when you and I will have no pleasures in the days that we live. And that's why he says the very first command, remember now your Creator. In other words, there will come a time when you take pleasure in nothing else. You'll reach an age and a point in life when nothing else is important except your relationship with the one who has created you. So don't wait till then. That's why he says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. There's no point in waiting till you get older. There's no point in waiting till your 20s or even your 30s or 40s. There's no point in waiting. You wasted time when you do that. Remember God now in your youth at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Remember God then. That is when it is critical for your relationship. Start now. Don't waste time. Start now. Verse 6, he says again, remember your Creator before the silver cord is loosed, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the well. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher, all is vanity. He speaks of things of great value. He speaks of a silver cord. He said a cord that is silver. This was a tension. They used these types of cords of strength for tension, and he said it'll be loosed in these days. The golden bowl, a very valuable, significant meaning of value and rich, being rich and having the pleasures of attaining the great things in this life, the expensive things in this life. He says that golden bowl that means so much, it'll be broken. He talks about a pitcher that is shattered at the fountain, what they would use to go and draw water, beautiful crystal pitchers, and he says it will be shattered. And not just anywhere, but at the fountain. the place where it matters most, the place that it is used the most. The reason it was even made will be shattered because it holds no more value. That's what he's saying life will be like in the end. That's where we're headed. That's where I'm headed. That's where you're headed, regardless of your age, regardless of how young you are. This is certain. We are headed in that direction. And then he tells us that dust will return to the earth, and our spirit will return to God, to the one who gave it. Then he says, vanity is vanities. All is vanity. The word vanity literally means temporary, or even could mean meaningless. The Hebrew word that is used for vanities is the word Hemphill, or pronounced edevel, and it is Hevel. That's how you spell it in the English vocabulary. But it literally means vapor or smoke. That's what Hemphill means, and that's what Solomon is saying life is. Everything in life is but a vapor, and it is smoke. And if you look at smoke or you look at vapor, it almost seems like you can reach out and grab it and get a hold of it. And when you try, you realize you're grabbing at nothing. You can't get a hold of vapor. You can't get a hold of smoke. It looks like it, but you can't grab it. And that's what he's saying life is. We try so hard to get a grip on life and to grab a hold to our lives and have some control in our lives. We take pleasure in thinking about the things that are important in life, like money and a job and a good education and trying to save up and have a nice house, nice car, nice job, all these things. We put so much value in time and energy in these things, and Solomon is saying it is all vanity. It's meaningless outside of the command he gives you in the very beginning, having your relationship with God. And in other words, what Solomon wants to do, his main goal and priority in this book is to deconstruct all the things that man says is valuable in life, in order that we understand the only thing that really matters is our relationship with our Creator. This is a man, again, who has lived the greatest life you could possibly live in this world. And at the end of it, he says, everything I've done, everything I've attained, everything I've accomplished, all my accolades are completely meaningless and worthless outside of my relationship with God. Again, he's speaking from not just wisdom, but experience at this point. And look at the last two verses. He says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. In other words, I've said everything I've said so that I can say this. All the 12 chapters before, I've said all that I've said. I've written all that I've written in order to say this right here. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. In other words, this is everything to the human life. Fearing God and keeping his commandments. Listen, you can't separate God and his commandments. You can't separate God and his word. They are hand in hand. They go together. You cannot separate. To know God is to know his commandments. To know God is to know his ways, to know his word. That's why this book, it may just be a book to most, but that's why it is so important to the Christian, to the one who follows Christ, because it is his word, it is his ways, it is his promise. You want to know about God? You have to read. I have to read. We need to read, to study God's word. This is where God speaks to us so often, if not most of the time, is right here in his word. And then he says in the last verse, this is a promise, not just from Solomon. We hear Christ give this promise. God has spoken over and over and over throughout the Bible. This is a promise. Paul reminds us in his epistles of this promise. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. So Solomon tells us, life is a vapor. It is here and then it's gone. Just like that. Just like that. You can live 120 years and it's a vapor. It's here and it's gone. Just like that. And all these things that we spend so much time focusing on, it's vanity. It's meaningless outside of our relationship with God. The very most important thing that you and I could ever grab a hold of and actually hold on to and depend on is that relationship with God. Listen, two things ring true in this chapter is time and death. That's what Solomon's speaking of. Time. We all have this in common, is time. And the fact is, it's running out. We're not gaining time, we're losing time. Every second that passes by is another second gone in this life. It's coming. Death is another thing we all share and we all have in common. It's definite. We're going to die. 1 out of 1 person dies, as Pastor Dean would say. I'm going to die. You're going to die. Solomon died. Every one of us are going to die. And the only thing that's going to matter at that moment when time runs out and death is knocking at our door is our relationship with God. So that would be my question. Where is your relationship with God? Do you have a relationship with God? I believe wholeheartedly if you don't and you're hearing this video right now and you're hearing the words that I've spoken from God's word, God is crying out to you right now to come and to know him. Grab a hold of the thing that matters most, your relationship with the one who created you. The greatest life you could ever live is one with him.